Have you ever kept a secret? A secret so big, so heavy it felt like a physical weight on your chest? Most of us have. We carry these burdens, these hidden truths, locked away behind our teeth. We understand that some things are meant to stay in the dark, forever unspoken. But there is a particular kind of person who cannot bear the silence. For them, the thrill of the secret isn't in the keeping of it, but in the telling. They crave the gasp, the wide-eyed stare, the moment of shock when their hidden power is finally revealed to the world. It's a dangerous game to play, especially when your secret isn't just embarrassing. It's a crime. Imagine pulling off the perfect heist. The planning was meticulous, the execution flawless. You walked away with a fortune, leaving no clues, no witnesses, no trace for the authorities to follow. You are a ghost, a phantom who slipped through the cracks of the system. The police are baffled, the public is mesmerized, and you're free. You have everything you ever wanted. But then, a little whisper starts in the back of your mind. A nagging, persistent voice. It tells you that your genius is going unnoticed. It tells you that your masterpiece of a crime is just an unsolved mystery, and you are just an anonymous figure, forever in the shadows of your own success. This is the story of the criminals who listened to that whisper. These are the tales of men and women who held the winning ticket, but couldn't resist showing it to a world that was desperately trying to find them. They are the architects of their own downfall, brought down not by a brilliant detective or a slip of forensic evidence, but by their own uncontrollable urge to brag. They had to be the smartest person in the room. They had to let someone, anyone, know just how clever they had been. It's a fatal flaw, a crack in the armor of even the most cunning criminal mind. A single boast, a careless word, is all it takes. They say that pride comes before the fall. In the dark and twisted world of true crime, pride is not just a precursor to the fall. It is the very thing that pushes you off the edge. It's the force that turns a perfect crime into a life sentence. These stories are a chilling reminder that the greatest threat to a criminal's freedom is often not the law enforcement chasing them, but the very ego that drove them to commit the crime in the first place. You are about to enter a world where the tongue is a sharper weapon than any knife, and silence is the only shield that works. But for these individuals, silence was a price they were unwilling to pay. There is a predictable, almost tragic pattern to these stories. It begins with a crime, often one that displays a high degree of planning and nerve. The criminal tastes success, feeling a surge of power and invincibility. They are untouchable, a god in their own narrative. This feeling of omnipotence is intoxicating, but it is also a poison. After, the pride begins to swell, demanding recognition. The secret becomes a burden not of guilt, but of unacknowledged brilliance. The criminal starts to believe they are smarter than everyone. Not just the police, their friends, their family, strangers at a bar. They are playing a game that only they know the rules to. Then comes the moment of weakness. Rarely a grand confession under bright interrogation lights. Instead, a quiet boast to a new girlfriend, a drunken story told to a stranger at a dimly lit bar, a cryptic post on social media. The criminal, high on their own success, feels the need to share their victory. They want to see the look of awe, or perhaps fear. In that moment, validation matters more than freedom. They let the secret slip, just a little, thinking they can control it. But secrets, once released, have a life of their own. That small, careless word travels. A friend tells another friend. A stranger at the bar remembers a detail from a news report. The online post is screenshotted. The post is shared. The post is analyzed by 1,000 amateur detectives. The boast becomes the first thread detectives can pull. Once they start pulling, the tapestry of lies unravels. A small detail from the brag matches an obscure piece of evidence from the crime scene. A detail only the killer could know. This is where the game ends. The high stakes of their gamble come crashing down. That one moment of bragging, of needing to be seen, seals their fate. All the planning, all the risk, all the effort to remain a ghost, undone by the simple human desire for applause. The stakes are everything. Freedom, the future, life itself. The smallest words can destroy the most elaborate plans. For some, the prison of anonymity is more terrifying than steel and stone. They had to brag, and then they got caught. Our first story takes us back to a time before the internet, before social media could instantly broadcast a fool's confession to the world. This was a time when a boast had to be spoken, voice to voice, in the close, conspiratorial air of a dimly lit room. It begins in the bustling, glamorous heart of London in the 1950s, a city rebuilding itself from the ashes of war, its wealthy elite once again indulging in the finer things in life. And few things were finer than the jewels that sparkled in the windows of Mayfair's exclusive boutiques. One man, a career criminal with a taste for luxury and an ego to match, saw these glittering prizes not as objects of beauty, but as his for the taking. His name was lost to the annals of small-time crime for a while, a ghost in the city's underworld. He was meticulous in his planning. He wasn't a brutish smash-and-grab artist. He saw himself as a strategist, a connoisseur of crime. For weeks, he studied a high-end jewelry store, learning the patrol routes of the local constables, the habits of the shop owner, and the vulnerabilities of the building's old-world architecture. His plan was simple but elegant. He would enter through an adjacent, unassuming building, tunnel through a shared wall and bypass the main alarms on the front door and windows. It was a silent, patient approach. The crime itself was a masterpiece of stealth. Over a single weekend, he chiseled his way through brick and plaster, emerging into the vault like a phantom. He took only the most valuable pieces, leaving the lesser gems behind, a signature of his discerning taste. When the shop owner opened on Monday morning, the scene was one of quiet devastation. The front of the store was untouched, but the vault, the heart of the business, was ransacked. The police were baffled. There were no signs of forced entry on the exterior, no witnesses, no fingerprints left behind. It was as if the jewels had simply vanished into thin air. The thief had his fortune, a collection of diamonds and precious stones worth a king's ransom. He had his freedom. All he had to do was disappear, melt back into the city's anonymity, and live a life of quiet luxury. But the silence of his success began to gnaw at him. The brilliance of his plan, the sheer audacity of his heist, was a story with no audience. The weight of his unshared genius became heavier than the diamonds in his pocket. He needed to tell someone. He needed to see the shock, the awe, the respect in another person's eyes. It was a compulsion, a deep-seated need to be recognized as the clever man he believed himself to be. He wasn't just a thief, he was an artist, and his art demanded an exhibition. He decided to visit his favorite pub, a place where stories were currency, and a good tale could make you a king for a night. It was a decision that would turn his perfect crime into a perfect lesson in human folly. He walked into the pub, the heavy weight of the stolen jewels a secret thrill against his chest. The air was thick with smoke and the low murmur of conversation. He ordered his usual drink, a strong ale, and settled into a corner booth. He was just another face in the crowd, another working man unwinding after a long day, but inside, his ego was screaming for release. He scanned the room, his eyes landing on a small group of acquaintances, men he knew from the neighborhood, men who saw him as an equal, not a superior. This, he thought, was the perfect stage. He wasn't talking to the police, or to a rival. He was talking to ordinary men who would be dazzled by his cunning. He sauntered over, a confident smirk playing on his lips. The conversation was mundane: football, the weather, the rising cost of living. He listened for a moment, a predator waiting for the perfect opening. Then, he casually steered the topic towards the news, to the audacious jewelry heist that had all of London talking. "Baffled the police they have," one man said, shaking his head in wonder. The thief chuckled, a low, knowing sound. "A ghost?" he repeated, leaning in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Not a ghost. Just a very, very clever man. Imagine," he said, "if a man knew that the wall behind the vault was just old brick, if he knew the patrolman takes his tea break at 2 in the morning. He laid out the details. Not all of them, but enough. He described the patience it would take, the specific tools one might use, the feeling of stepping into a room full of unguarded treasure. He was no longer just telling a story, he was reliving his triumph. One of the men in the group was a low-level informant, someone who occasionally passed tidbits to the local police for a few pounds. He listened intently, his expression unchanging. The thief, lost in his own narrative, didn't notice the flicker of interest in the informant's eyes. He didn't see that his words were being collected, catalogued, and stored. The details he shared were too specific, too close to the bone. His hypothetical clever man sounded an awful lot like someone who had actually been there. The boast, meant to make him a legend in a small pub, was about to make him a suspect in a major crime.